fathers, even if we don't have both, but just to be, a father in the sense of responsibility and support to the mothers and to the, so-called biological parents.
Any other question over here?
What do you think about the impact of young men not going to church or the mosque or whatever? What do you think the effect it has on children of not people who don't go to church with men? The men. Women are always in church or mosque. What about the men? What do you think the impact on the child?
Of them not going?
Yes, spiritual impact.
Well, it depends on what they're doing, sister, when they don't go, but it is important for every father to connect his child to the divine supreme being in a spiritual sense. And I was having a discussion with brother in the intermission, and regardless to some of our wayward ways, generations past, we always had a sense of God-centeredness in our lives. And today, the mere fact that many of our young children don't have no inclination of any spiritual being is obviously a sign that we as parents are not instilling in our children a spiritual criteria that will help them to be able to navigate their way through this society. So I think, yes, sister, you're right. It is important for us as black men to lead our children on a straight path that has already been established prior to them being born. But in the interim period, whilst that is taking place, I think it is important for mothers to continue to instill a God-centered or a spirit of righteousness in their children. And I want to say something about just weekend fathering. I think it's important for us as men to have more input in our children's life than just seeing them on the weekend. And dependent upon what we're going to do with our children on the weekend will really determine whether sometimes it is right for a child to be with the parent on the weekend if the parent or the father is going to take that child to sit down in the house and smoke weed and watch programs that the mother has forbidden the child to watch. It all depends on what both parents agree that child should be exposed to. So I don't think it should be about the mother, doing this Monday to Friday, then us on the weekend. Us as fathers are going to pick up our children and not do anything constructive with them. I think that has to be discussed because we just can't have children for children's sake. It's important if our children are at school Monday to Friday, and if they're at a decent school, they're getting homework every day. It's important for us as fathers to take out quality time in the week to help our children with their homework so that they can achieve good grades at school, but not just turn up during recreation time to go bowling or to go cinema. I think we have to have a greater input in our children's life than the recreation time, which generally the weekend is for. So I think as black men, we should destroy that old paradigm of just being parents on the weekend and take our children through during the week, during the times of academic growth and development. I think that will show a greater level of responsibility on our part. And in truth, I think that many of our women will warm to us more so as men if we took a greater responsibility for our children's educational and spiritual growth. I don't think it's a very bad woman who just doesn't want a child to be with the father because the father is progressive. I think it's important that as parents, if we have made a child together, regardless whether our relationship hasn't worked, we find common ground to sit down and meet somewhere so that for the sake of the harmony or the sake of the development of our child, we try and find a balanced approach so that when we're both in the presence of our children, that child can get what it deserves, which is some peace from both parents. Because to cause a child to choose between mother and father, I don't think it's a good thing. If the relationship doesn't work, then we failed as parents to each other. But we shouldn't then fail our children. I think we should come together so that our children can still achieve the ambitions that we both want for our children to achieve. So spiritually, as fathers, I think it is important, sister, for all men to connect their children to a spiritual source. Sit down and read some kind of scripture with the child, or take the child to Africa. Expose the child to Africa. Expose the child to Egypt. But do something with them educational and constructive. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask Brother Decanu just to speak about how the media shapes the perception of who we even choose as mates or as potential partners. Because for many of us, we may feel, it's a personal decision as to the type of person that I look on or who I find attractive. Can you just elaborate a bit about how the media shapes who we're pulled towards and who we're repelled against, for example?
I think if most of us are honest with what we perceive to be beautiful and what we perceive to be so-called attractive, what we perceive to be intelligent, what we perceive to be successful, has come from, for the majority of us, from a Western perspective, because we cannot be a product of this environment and not base our decisions based on an environment we're not familiar with. And the majority of us have been groomed to look at certain so-called traits based on the Western images of so-called beauty and success. I myself, in my early days, was definitely looking at sisters based on the so-called, the closer to the light skin, so-called fair complexion model, until, I decided, hold on a minute, there's something deeper than the outer physical characteristics, of the sister. So, and I think what also plays heavily on the male psyche, which is yet to be debated in hopefully one of Paulie's sessions on fathering, is how we wasting our sperm, literally. Many of us as men, as black men, have become over-sexualized as a result of the media. You're dealing with a media that uses sex to virtually everything. So many of us cannot sit here and pretend as if we are not affected by it. Many of us as men, when we pretend to be righteous or how we're talking, cannot, have been addicted still to kind of crave and lust of our women, and that is something we need to work on. And so it's not something many of us want to discuss in open, but we know it's something that's part of our psyche, and so on. So, we cannot excuse it as because I'm man. Man must multiply, man must. No, man must behave himself, man must develop and learn, and so on. And same with our sisters. So we are, in many ways, a product full-time of the media, and the whole sexualization of our, concept of what, how we perceive men and women. The media has a lot to do with it. And it's just that many of us don't choose to admit it. So we really are dealing with an integrity issue here and an honesty with ourselves. Because many men, we really can't do, some of us have been so sexualized that we feel we must have more than one partner. We say, well, look to Africa, they were dealing with polygamy. No, polygamy was a system that was, in its proper context, was supported by the community. What many of we brothers want is illegally. We want to have sisters on the side, not be accountable to nobody, and do what we want. No, that ain't community. I hope that is helpful. It doesn't mean we cannot, as men, just to be clear, there is nothing wrong with we looking at a sister and admiring her beauty, but we have to see the beauty beyond the physical. There's nothing wrong with a sister looking at a brother and say, brother, you are attractive, but we have to see beyond the physical characteristics, because you can feel somebody's soul, you can feel their spirit, if that person is truly beautiful. and so on. And that's the essence where we're going to take beauty from, not from the shallow, Western, carnal aspect of beauty, but the deeper inner essence. And that's the key when we start to blend, and then we wouldn't even have to take our women through divorce courts. You know, we wouldn't have to be going through some of these issues, because if the truth be told, many of our men and women who enter into relationships, we entered into them immature in our own understanding of really what we went into that relationship for. You know, some of we brothers, we went in there looking for a sister who was a pacifier, someone just to be a soother, and so on. And some of our sisters, the same thing. And so we've got to look at ourselves, we've got to look at the program, we've got to look at still what shapes us, what motivates us, no matter whether organizations we're in, no matter what banners we're flying, no matter what sermon we're preaching to. You see the corruption, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're into your traditional African, it's still ongoing, and we cannot turn a big blind eye to it. You know, some of our so-called great leaders and great men and women were weakened in the area of sex. You know, we got to be honest about it. It's not that they were bad leaders, but there was a weakness in certain parts of us, because none of us are perfect. We're developing, we're growing. But the key thing is that, are we going to learn from our mistakes? That's the key thing about growth. When our children do wrong, what do? We try to explain to them where you went wrong and where we can correct you. We need to apply the same things to ourselves and not expect of our children what we're not expecting of ourselves.
Okay, thank you, brothers and sisters. We have overran in time, so unfortunately we're going to have to draw the meeting to a close. There is so much we haven't discussed. I personally had a question to ask Brother Hilary about the hurt that sometimes the brother causes the sister, and then she denies him meeting his own child. So we'll have to save that for another time. The next meeting is on the 27th of July in Wood Green, when we will begin the next phase of this fascinating subject. However, before we close, I would like to point out that there is tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, I haven't got the address, I wrote it down somewhere. Could you tell me, sister? Oh, I think I left it here, sorry. Tomorrow at... This is not it. Oh, sorry. What would you like to say?
Well, I think this is in reference to where we meet as the Nation of Islam on a weekly basis. We meet at number 3 Hinton Road, Brixton. And the times of our meeting is Sunday 2 till 4, Wednesday 7:30 through to 9, Friday study session between the hours of 7:30 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So you're all invited to come along. I would have to say, I'd love to thank Brother Dekanu for his contribution. Round of applause. And of course, the wonderful, to me, the Honourable Dr. Minister, and last but by no means least, Paulie Sturridge.
And let's not forget Nubian Jack.
Thank you.
We need to have this for the record. Honourable Minister
Absolutely.
Hilary Mohammed.
Yes.
Okay.
Doctor. No, drop the doctor.
Not Professor.
Now, if the truth be told,
Yes.
it's Minister Hilary Muhammad. The honourable part is for Louis Farr.
I know. I thought it was worthy for tonight. That's all.
Thank you.
Everybody's welcome to leave. Everybody still want to sit down.
Okay, I've got your microphone. Let me give you your microphone.
Everybody's still here.